So let's talk about perception a little bit. You know, these shows, like I'm thinking of the one out of England. I think it's out of England. It's Sherlock. It's a new version of a story of Sherlock Holmes. It's probably not that new to you, but I just saw it last year. And it's actually a really good show, illustrated by its popularity, I suppose. One of the things I find very interesting in it is when they go in the mind of Sherlock as he's evaluating a scene. And he's seeing details. And he's extrapolating information off of those details and connecting them together over time to figure out what the heck is going on. I think that's a really exciting process. Because I think we all do that. You'll also see the same thing in other shows where they've overlaid information. You now get into this with augmented reality, where we're actually getting the ability to have glasses or something that has data being in front of us, perhaps even into our eyes. The technology behind that is probably going to come along pretty quickly, because the ability to augment your own thinking process with actual information specific to the situation is extremely valuable. So that's cool. But I guess I'd like us to use that kind of, when I look at that interface, I use that as an illustration of seeing kind of how I think. Because I do the same thing. I recognize patterns and I attach them to other things, and I'm using knowledge that I've gained over years. I'm associating something as being similar with something else. And no, I don't know every detail in the world like Sherlock seems to almost know. But, but I know a lot after so many years of attempting to think and learn about things. The interesting thing is that the process he goes through when he does that is he's collecting data points and associating them. And in the show, he'll often come to the wrong conclusion. And that's because he's using what he can and we can attach together. And then he adjusts according to new information and the plot continues. I believe we all do that we're all constantly making associations on everything we see. And then a lot of us have attempted to become more conscious of that process in action, to see that process in action within ourselves. And I think that has to do with like really expanded consciousness. If we want to talk about understanding things more, we can become more aware of what it is we're seeing and how we're attaching it and why we might make mistakes, why we do make mistakes constantly. Okay? We've all had different experiences, we're using different data points, we're recognizing different things, so it's not surprising we come to different conclusions. But by becoming aware of what we're associating, we can then start to make more intelligent decisions about what data actually attaches to what other data and how. We can learn to question that process and hopefully come to correct conclusions that more accurately match something similar to a shared reality that we have. Because then if we're sharing this reality together, if we're perceiving it together, and if we can be aware of it, talk about it, alter our perceptions, we have a lot more chances of being in agreement about what should happen, how we should live, how we should talk, what we need, our own needs, the needs of others, and how we can come to positive solutions for all. Also, that I think is a great way to find out what some of our prejudices and biases are. Now, some people would see that as a deductive process of taking this data and coming up with this conclusion. But since we're using incomplete data sets, we're often not deducing, we're inducing. We're using induction to induce what reality might be. I don't see that something like the word is escaping me. Certainly that helps us with empathy for each other. Intuition is what I'm looking for. I make a lot of decisions based on what I would call intuition, because things, and often I'll say, oh, it's a guess. Now, it's an educated guess, but a lot of people trust intuition. I think it's very dangerous to trust intuition without increasing the amount of awareness we have over the data we have. Let's try and deduce as much as we can. Let's try and use as clean a process as we can and be aware of where we have holes and where we're kind of inferring right? This is all inference of like what we think something kind of means. And we might often be right, but there's a huge danger in trusting yourself. And it gets into things like pseudoscience and just making up convenient truths that then we can make a simpler map of how things function. Like if I make up a God or something, then I can say that God did this and God did that, and I'm doing it because of God. I've made my life much simpler with the addition of kind of an all-purpose meaning thing. Unfortunately, we're all going to attach different meanings to that made-up concept. So it's a crutch. It's an intellectual crutch. It's dangerous. It's as if I was to make up my good friend here who's invisible. You can't happen to see him. He's Harvey, a 6-foot-tall puka, a rabbit. But you can't see him as a magical creature, really. And so if I'm responding to him and saying what he wants, then are you going to trust me, or are you going to think I'm nuts? I think you'll think I'm nuts. The example I'm using is comes from a play and a movie called Harvey, which the most famous case was played by playing Elwood P. Dowd. The primary character was done by cool guy, forgot his name at the moment, but you can look that up. It's a great movie. I played that in high school. I played the role of Elwood P. Dowd. It was a very fun role. But I think if I was to walk around just giving you enough made-up shit, even if you're the kind of person who believes things that are totally made up, I think you would be suspicious of me because my made-up stuff isn't the same as your made-up stuff. And so we inherently are separated. We intellectually can never come together if someone is believing things because they're convenient, whether it's pseudoscientific or spiritual. So I try and avoid those problems myself. And that does mean that I have to do things like say, I don't know, which some people seem like they don't want to say that. I don't know, but we don't know most things. And a lot of things we think we know are completely false. Completely false. We tend to believe ourselves. We tend to have faith in ourselves, and I think that's a huge mistake. If we're going to develop a shared consciousness, if we're going to develop any form of consciousness that we can actually think is valid, then we have to get out of some of the normal traps that a fancy ape has thinking-wise. We have to learn to think. This especially becomes important when we're discussing big issues of the day, where we have to make societal decisions about what kind of culture we want to have and how we want to live. So this affects all peace in the world. This affects everything about how we use resources. We've got to learn to think. I'm working on it, and I hope you work on it in ways that work for you. But I hope it's an uncomfortable process. I hope that almost everything you believe gets questioned, and that we can keep working as best we can. Good luck to you.